Thank you for joining us. I'm Linda Fitzgerald, and I am here to help you through your introduction to Excel. I am with the Small Business Development Center, and this is the Shasta-Cascade office. We're so glad that you're here. I want to start by reading for you a disclaimer. This is really important, so please bear with me as I get through this for you. The information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to registrants are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, or other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the HSU-sponsored Programs Foundation, specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the information presented in this webinar. And the Shasta-Cascade, as I said, it's the Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center. We're a nonprofit organization, and we provide confidential, no-cost advisory and training services to small businesses. We're funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration and by Humboldt State University. And I'd like to introduce David, who is our director. David.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you taking the time. A little bit about the SBDC that I'd like you all to know. If you're not familiar with the SBDC, we provide confidential, no-cost advisory and training services. We are funded by the SBA, and like our lead advisor, Joe Radola, likes to say, thank you for paying your taxes, because if you didn't, we wouldn't be able to do this. If you're not from Shasta or Trinity counties in Northern California, there's still an SBDC near you. We cover Shasta and Trinity counties in Northern California, but there are nearly 1,000 centers in the United States. So if you are an entrepreneur or a small business owner looking for some help or just has questions and would like some advice, Google SBDC and you can find the location near you. And there is one other thing I'd like to let people know, especially in Shasta and Trinity counties. If you go to the Startup Reading Facebook page, you'll see a link for the virtual venture camp, which is happening this Friday. And I encourage you to check out the video stream that's coming up this Friday at noon Pacific time. That's on Facebook at the Startup Reading Facebook page. And we'll leave it at that. And Linda, you can go for it.
Thanks, David. So I am Linda Fitzgerald. I am your presenter today. I worked 7 years at Microsoft where I learned to use Excel. And I've used Excel so long that I joke with people that to me, I use Excel as a second language. I spent 10 years as a financial analyst and 7 years running my own business where Excel is a major part of it. Today in this introduction to Excel class, we're going to talk about the screen layout. We're going to talk about creating a spreadsheet. And I really want to take you through frequently used features. Now, Excel has a lot of material. Teaching you Excel is like teaching you a foreign language. There's a lot to cover. I want to give you the basics to get you comfortable and give you a strong foundation. Then we're going to have some time for questions and we will wrap up. So my objective is to get you comfortable in using the basics of Excel. And I know some people have had exposure to Excel, some haven't. So I'm going to start at a really basic level. So now let me do some screen sharing here. And I'm going to turn off my video for now and make some adjustments. Let me get you over to Excel. All right, I am hoping that you're seeing my Excel screen right now. David, can you confirm that for me?
Looks great, yep.
Wonderful, okay. So this is what opens when you first launch Excel. And what I want to explain to you is you might see some variances from the version of Excel that you use. And the reason for that is there are a lot of different versions of Excel. There's Excel 365, there's Excel 2016, Excel Excel 2019, Excel 2020. There are a lot of different versions, but for the most part, they're very similar. There's also Excel for the PC and for the Macintosh. I'm on a PC right now. I'm going to take you through the different areas of Excel to help you get a little more comfortable with it. Some of you may have seen this before. To some of you, you might be learning. I'm hoping I'm going to teach you some things that you didn't know, even if you have used Excel before. So along the top of that screen, up in what's called the title bar, up here, that green area is what's called your quick access bar. There are a couple things that are here by default, and there are things that you can add there. So if there's a feature you're using over and over, you can actually put it in the quick access toolbar. And then we have the menu right here, which is the words. And then down here is what's called the ribbon. So depending on which word is underlined here, right now home is underlined, that's the ribbon that's going to display below. So let me show you as I click on the different menu items. It's just going to show you different options of what's available. Once you choose that menu item, it displays the appropriate ribbon. When I'm working, I'm spending most of my time in the home area. This is where a lot of the basic font formatting is and the alignment formatting is located. So let's spend some time in this particular home one because this is frequently used. There's cut, copy. You might find that you put something in a location and you want to move it. So you'll cut it and move it somewhere else. You might find you create something and you want to duplicate it. So that's when you're going to copy. I'm going to show you how to use some of these in just a moment. And it's going to be easier to show you when I have some material inside the spreadsheet. So let me continue to go through the sheet itself. This is called the formula bar right here. Notice it says B16 here. And that is each cell. When I'm clicking in a cell. This little square is a cell. Each cell has an address. And when I click in that cell, notice the name up here changes. So right now I'm in cell C4. Whenever I teach this, it always reminds me of Battleship when you say the column and the row number. So the address for this particular cell is C4. And you'll see that change. This is particularly helpful when you start creating formulas because you'll look at a formula and the formula will have that cell address in it. So I want to make sure you understand where that's coming from. And then this area down here is your spreadsheet grid. Down here is called your status bar. And because these spreadsheets are large, on the far right, you have this kind of little elevator. I can move it with the bar itself, or I can move it with the arrows. And depending on how much real estate you've explored on the sheet, it will grow and give you the ability to move more. And the same is true at the bottom. I can move that bar back and forth. And notice I've already typed some information over here. So I want you to see in the bottom right corner, there's this percentage. It's your zoom. You can zoom in and you can zoom out. Find what's comfortable for you. Often I'll create a spreadsheet and I like to be able to look at the entire spreadsheet, so I'll adjust that view. Now this information over here, I want to start using that, but I don't, wait, I want to show you one other thing before I start moving material. Notice my mouse. My mouse right now is a white cross. And when I go up here, it's changing into different shapes. Here it's a pointer. This is an insertion beam. So if I type something, imagine a sentence is there and I could type in the middle of it and choose where I wanted to be. A down arrow, an arrow to the left and right. So before you do something with your mouse, you want to think about what mode is it in? And that'll make a little more sense in a minute. So I'm going to start putting some information here. Excel is wonderful for calculations. So I'm going to enter some numbers. I clicked on a cell and I'm going to type a number in. And now I'm going to hit the enter key. When I hit the enter key, it goes down. So I want to type in another number. So I'm just going to type in a bunch of numbers and enter to go down. And this is what I love Excel for. Years ago, I used to do things in a calculator and I would say, oh, I don't want to break out Excel. I'll just do it on the calculator and I'll calculate a number and a bunch of numbers. And then oh gosh, did I do it right? I don't know, did I key in each of those numbers correctly? Let me do it again and see if I get the same total again. Instead, I'll just go to Excel. I can type the numbers, I can visually double check them, and then I can calculate them quickly. Now, this is one of my favorite Excel features. I'm below the numbers I just entered. Notice there's a box there, and there's a little tiny square over here. That's the normal shape that that box is going to take. I want to add the things that are above. And if I go up here into my home menu on the ribbon, there's a button called Auto Sum. And when I hold my mouse over it, a tooltip pops up explaining to me what that does. And when I click on it, look at what it does. It's putting in a formula, which is equal and then SUM for sum. And then it's highlighting with this little movement marquee around it, the range that it thinks I want to add. That's what it's choosing by default. And if I hit enter, it enters it. So that is the calculation. And this is interesting. Right now, I know that it's adding the cells above it. I like to add some formatting, because if I don't format that cell correctly and I go away from this spreadsheet and I come back to it a week later, I might not remember that that's a formula. So I'm going to click on the cell and I want to go up here to borders. Right now, there's a little drop down box here, and that means I have more border options. The picture to the left has a cell with a bottom border on it. If I clicked on that box, I get a bottom border. Now that isn't the standard formatting for when you create a sum. So instead I'm going to go up here and I click the drop down arrow. And when I go here, I see top and double bottom border. Now it's hard to tell right now because I'm on that cell, but when I click on another cell, you can see that now I have one line above and a double line below, which for a lot of financial reporting is the word, it's what makes us realize that that's totaling. So this information, we can see what that's doing. Now let's talk about more. I want to use this bar up here and show you how these features are really helpful to us. So right now, all of these numbers right here are just showing as regular numbers. What if we decide that they're money? We can go in here and we can, up in here, see it says number. Right now it's showing general, which means it's not really doing anything special with that number. When I click on this drop down, I have different options. I have a number with decimals, I have currency, I have accounting. These two are different. It just depends on where the dollar sign lands. Let's choose currency. And notice I affected that one cell, but I didn't affect the others. So what you tell Excel is you have to tell it what cells you want to have that format. So far, we've just been entering in one cell. I want to show you how we can format a number of cells at once. And what you need to do is you need to choose them by highlighting them. I can go in here and I can highlight all of these. And then I can go up here and choose currency. And they all have it. But sometimes when you're working on something, you know everything. Oh, this is your column. This is your column. Columns have letters and rows have numbers. If I know that everything I'm going to enter in column E is going to be a dollar sign, I can go up here and tell the entire column. Because right now, if I enter something, it's the other format. But I can tell Excel that every time I enter something in column E, I want it to be dollars. So I'll go up here and choose currency. So anywhere I type here now has that new format. So that's a little bit about numbers. And I want to take these names over here and I want to show you the cut and copy feature. Those are up here, cut and copy. Now I have this information and I want to use it. I don't really like it over in that far right column. Instead, I want to have it on the left. So I can go here, highlight a range. Actually, I'm going to go back one step. If I went here and I have the name Pat and I want to move Pat over there, I can right click and choose cut, or I can go up here and choose cut. There's even key functions that I can use for cut. Right now, I'm going to use these menus because I want you to see what I'm doing. I cut, and notice it gets a little moving marquee, and I can go over here, and then I can right click here and choose paste. And now notice Pat's not over here anymore. I moved it, I cut it and pasted it. Now for Chris, I want to move Chris over there as well, but let's say this time, instead of cutting, I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to click on the cell that says Chris, and I'm going to go up here and use this item in the menu, which is copy. And if you look here at the tooltip, it tells me if I want to use keystrokes instead, I can hold down the control key and tap the letter C, and that will do the same thing. So now this is in copy. It still has the marquee, and I'm going to go over here and right click on the cell that I want it to. I clicked in it first to choose the cell destination, and then I'm going to right click, and when I paste, it gives me options. How do I want to paste it? I can paste a value, I can paste a formula. I just want the simple paste. I'm pasting it there. Now this time, Chris is over here, still in marquee, with that marquee around it, because I can paste it again. And I can keep pasting it over and over. I'm going to hit my escape key, and that's going to stop that feature. Now here's another thing I can do. Now I want Terry to be over here in these other numbers. I can click on that cell that says Terry, and I can take my mouse over the cell, and notice I get a couple different shapes. There's that white cross, then there's the four-headed arrow. The four-headed arrow allows me to move it. I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and drag it to where I want it to be. So I moved it. And now let's add another name here. I'm going to be in it. There we go. I typed, and then I hit enter, and it goes down. I want to track some information from people over a period of time. So let's say we want to do months. Let's say this is July. And notice if I hit enter, I'm going to go down. But what I really want to do is I want to have the months go across the right side. Instead of hitting enter, which goes down, I can type July and hit tab, and that goes to the right. August and tab, and that goes to the right. Now here's something really wonderful. There's a feature called autofill. There are certain words in here that, enter a couple. There are certain words in here that are already in Excel's autofill. Days of the week, months. And what that means is I can drag that item to the right and it will increment for me. Let me show you what I mean. With August, see, remember that little box I pointed out in the bottom right corner? This is where that box comes into play. I'm going to put my mouse on top of that box, and now I'm going to hold my left mouse button down and drag to the right. And wherever I let go, it's going to populate. And it does the same with the abbreviated months. So again, I take my mouse to the corner and I drag to the right. And if I hit the end of the year, it just repeats. Same thing for days. You can create your own autofills. If you have a certain, maybe you have 8 team members that work with you and you're always populating their names over and over, you can create your own autofill and drag it and display that. So right now, I want to clean up. This looks messy and I want to do some cleanup. So just as you can pull, you can copy and move around cells that are populated, you can also copy cells that aren't populated. Watch what I'm going to do to clean this mess. I'm going to take 3 cells. They're all empty. And in the bottom right corner, I have that little special square that I can drag. I want to drag these empty cells across the top to clean up my spreadsheet. So now I want to pause for a moment and just see if there are any questions on some of the general steps that I went through already. And if you'd like to turn your microphone on and ask a question, please do. Or if you want to type in the chat, David can let me know there's something in the chat. All right, we're going to move on. So I'm imagining that you're filling something out for your business. Let's make it look better. Look at these. They're kind of messy. Some aren't fitting in. Some are overlapping. Right here, this July, I want to spend some time in with this alignment area. Right now, it's left aligned. That's the default when we type into a cell. If you look at these different images up here, we have left, alignment center, and alignment right. So I'm going to work on just this cell. And I'm going to make this much larger because I want you to be able to see a lot more on the screen. Oops, this way. There we go. That's better. There we go. So right now, you'll notice there's these vague looking lines. They're called grid lines. It helps me know where the cells are and where they end. So I'm going to go into this particular cell. It's E5. Notice the address is up here. And I want to show you different ways we can format that. So that is left aligned. We can do it center, left, center, and right. And they're aligning within the default of the column width right now and the row height. When you start an Excel spreadsheet, all the column widths are the same. All the row heights are the same. And that works out fine for what I have here in column E. And even in column F, it's not bad, but look at column G. September is cut off because there's information in the October cell. There's a really nice way to clean that up. And sure, you can say, let's just abbreviate all the months to 3 letters and that would solve it. But instead, I want to show you how you can adjust the width. Notice the shape of my mouse changed. It's a double-headed arrow, and I'm in between column G and H. If I hold my left mouse button down, it's going to show me the width, and it'll show me what the size is when I let go. I can make it bigger. I can make it smaller. Now, what's neat is what is called best fit. If I take the mouse right here and I double click, it makes a best fit to the widest entry. I'm going to add a little bit more data here because I want to give you some specific examples. Make my screen a little bigger. Okay. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a new sheet. These are spreadsheets, and Excel years ago used to just be one spreadsheet, and then they created what's called a workbook. And right here in the bottom corner, you're going to see I'm on sheet 1. I want to go into a new sheet to show you some examples. See this faint little plus here? I'm going to click on that, and it opens a brand new sheet. Now, if I go back to sheet 1, all my information is still there. Now in sheet 2, I have a fresh start. Again, everything goes back to the defaults, and I'm going to increase my percent so you can see things a little better. And now I want to put some more information in here. And watch what happens. If I make these smaller, some of them are fitting. Some of them are spilling over into the next cell. And that's okay because I'm not using that next cell yet. But what happens when I go over here and I put January information in? That's when I need to go in and let's make some adjustments. So I want to enter some, we'll say sales information. Let's put in some money. We'll put in some various dollar amounts. We'll make them big numbers to make it fun. Okay. And I want to format this. So I want to take this and make it centered. And oftentimes when we're looking at numbers, like I said before, we have the total here, but it's so much easier to read if we show our borders. So I want to show you the borders here. I'm going to highlight what I want to put lines around. Yes, everything has a grid right now, but if I highlight the cells that I want to have stand out with borders, and then I go here and say put a border around all the cells I selected, it's much easier to see the information. And here, I'm going to put in, instead of a sum this time, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to choose the drop down arrow and I'm going to choose an average. And then I hit enter. And over here, I'm going to write the word average just so I remember that that's what I calculated. There's a feature that I used Excel quite a while before someone even pointed out to me. I was working with a lot of numbers and I would highlight things and someone said, hey, Linda, look down here. When you highlighted those three numbers, notice that you're told the average, the count of how many there are, and the total right away. So when I was doing financial work, I didn't always have to create totals. I could quickly at a glance highlight something and see what the total or the average is, because these are showing up by default. And I've used that feature so many times, but it made me laugh because it probably existed years before anyone pointed it out to me. And the reason for that is in a tool, in software like Excel, we tend to find what's working for us and stick with it and not even notice some other things that are happening. So we've talked a bit about numbers and we've talked a bit about names. Before I move on to my next topic, I want to pause and see if there's any questions at this point. Okay, let's move on to some text. When we put text in a spreadsheet, it can be interesting figuring out what you want to do with it. So let me write down something. Here we go. All right, notice that this spilled over into the cell on the right. And the reason it was able to do that, there's nothing in that cell. So you can see it just fine. When I decide to type something here, oops, book number 1, all of a sudden that's chopped off. And you can't see it, but notice when I click on it, if we go up here into the formula bar, you see everything that's written there. And it's bugging me that book is uppercase, so I'm going to make that lowercase. And it's spilling over. Sometimes, like I showed you a little while ago, it might be right to make that column wider. But you might say, gosh, Linda, I want to put more things in here in the cell, but I really want it to stay where it is. I don't have the space. My spreadsheet has so many columns in it already that I wish we could do something else. And we can actually, let's make it small again. In this cell, we can wrap the text. Notice up here in alignment, wrapping the text. Extra long text will go onto multiple lines. So I'm going to click on that. And look what it did. It made row 9 taller so that it fits everything and it no longer spills over into the cell on the right. Just as I showed you how with columns we can make them narrower or wider, the same thing is true over here with rows. We can make them shorter and taller. So that's a little bit about text. Now I want to spend some more time in this area right here, the font area. Often we like to have something stand out to us. So let's make each of these look different. over here, this particular dropdown, when I hovered my mouse over it, I haven't clicked anything. Just by hovering over the item, a tooltip pops up. It says font. Pick a font for your text. And I get to choose the dropdown. And this will apply only to the cell that I have highlighted. And then this is the font size. I'm still in that same cell. Oh, it's getting kind of large. And then here, I can increase the font size or decrease the font size. I can make it bold, which it already looks pretty bold choosing the font I have. Let me go down to the gym one and let's make that one bold. I can make it italic. I can make it underlined. And notice that underlining the text is not the same as a border. The border is around the edge of the cell, where the text is just, the underline is just going to be above that borderline. Here are a lot of different options we have for borders. You can have fun in this area. And now highlighting. Let's say we want a certain number to be highlighted. We have the choice to choose, and it brings up a whole bunch of sample colors. And then there's the standard colors. I always love this one. But sometimes in numbers, we have to bring them out for different purposes. Red is the color we don't like associated with numbers so much. But we also have other options. When I'm working with companies, often companies have particular colors. And by particular colors, I mean their branding gives them a formula for a color. And if that is you and you want to make sure that you have something with your branding colors, you can actually come in here and type in whatever that particular color number is and change the number here. An example. Oops, I've got above my number here. Here we go. And then you can choose a particular color. Once you do that, that color is going to stay within that workbook for you. Going back to colors again, here's the standard ones, which you just choose the image that you like. I really like this pale yellow. I use that on spreadsheets often because it can make something stand out. It might be a little hard to see depending on how the colors are set up for your viewing of this. So for the purposes of this training, I'm going to make that color a little bit stronger. What I noticed is the yellow highlight, the standard yellow highlight that comes as a default color is pretty bright. And when I was looking at spreadsheets all day, that color was just too harsh for my eyes to stare at in the different cells I was populating. So think about what is a color that you like to look at if you're going to be using it in your cells. So we are halfway into our class and we've covered a lot. This is being recorded. We're going to post that recording for about a week to give you a chance to go through it. And I want you to keep in mind, there's a lot of information here. I want to show you some of the key things. Yes, there are more things we can cover on this particular ribbon, but I'd like to show you some other ribbons. I want to make sure that I'm sharing with you the things I'm using frequently. You may have the need to insert a picture, and you can go here. It can take you out on the internet. You can insert a shape. You can create some smart art. And if you click on each one of these, it'll explain to you what it is. Now, oftentimes people are using Excel because they want to do charts, and you can see different samples of charts. Let's take this information and let's make it a chart. We want to go up here and we want to give them a heading to each column. So we have name, and then we're going to say January. So we'll take this information. Notice I'm not bringing the average or the total. I'm going to highlight that information, and I want to go over here and let's see what's the recommended chart. It's showing me some options. I love this because you get an idea. Here's a bar chart with each person, and it has the amount on the left and the month. And here's what it would look like as a pie chart. So it gives me some different options. I'm going to go with this one and then say, okay. And there is my chart. In this chart, you'll notice there's these little corners on it where I can resize it. This is floating above my data. It's not embedded in. Sometimes that can be nice. Sometimes you don't want everyone to see your data. You just want them to see the chart, and you can hide it. But that is the simple chart. And now once we're in that chart, notice the menu changed. You can change the colors, you can change the layout, you can change the chart type. I'm going to click away from the chart, and when I do, it's going to take me back to the other menus. I'm sorry, it's going to take me back to my original data, and it's going to change me back to the home ribbon, which is what I was in before. So let's go over to insert again. And this time I want to move you just through some of these other menus. Page layout. This is where you can get into themes if you want to have different color combinations. The margins. How is this going to look when you print it out? What kind of orientation do you have? What we're looking at right now is considered a landscape orientation. And if this is what I'm going to print, it would be nice to make sure that that Excel knew which I wanted to use. Right now, it's set up as portrait, so I can change it to landscape. And we can choose the print area. Print area is important in Excel because sometimes if you're printing something, you don't necessarily want all the data or the other things around it. So you could print just the chart. Or you might say, I only want to print the data behind the chart. You have complete control of what you're going to print. And let's go over to formulas. I don't want to spend too much time here because this is kind of a big animal. So I'm going to just stick with numbers in this area, and I'll talk more about how you can get more detailed help in specific areas of Excel. There's data, you can have a lot of collections of information and report it in different ways called pivot tables, which is wonderful. I love using pivot tables. You can also review things within your spreadsheet. And the view, what does the view look like as I see it right now? Notice my grid lines can be off or they can be on. I like them on. Am I looking at my formula bar and my headings? And then there's the help screen and search. If there's something you don't know how to do, you can go into search, and that's real helpful. Sometimes I know there is a tool I need and I can't find it. And I'll click on search and it will bring the tool right to me. Now I'm just going to review my notes and make sure that I'm covering everything I wanted to cover with you. Oh, here's another great one when it comes to numbers. Right now, we have these numbers going down the left side. Those are actually for each row. So they might not be helpful for me in what I want to do for numbering. So I'm going to go to a new sheet because I want to talk with you about something new. Maybe I am setting up customers and I want to track information on these customers, and I might track their name. Oh, let me jump back. Let's say business name, and then the actual contact I have at that business, and their phone number, and their sales for, what month are we in? We'll do sales for September. Perhaps this is a report that I want to create. Let me use some of those tools I just talked with you about. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to double click because my business name is getting cut off. In September, this is getting cut off. So let's make things fit in there. And the phone number, that's probably going to need to be a little bit longer, and I bet their name is going to need to be a little bit longer. And I could go over here and maybe I want to have a list of how many people I'm going to list down, because maybe this is going to be a really long list. I don't want to type 1, 2, 3 all the way down. What I want to do, and let me remove the 2 because I want to show you something here. I'm going to duplicate, or I'm sorry, I'm going to count down the numbers. Now, right now it says, oh, Linda, do you want to just duplicate 1 over and over? Nope, that's not what I want to do. I want 1 and then 2, and I want to be incrementing by 1. So I showed it the pattern. And now I grab that little box that I mentioned to you earlier and I drag that down. And look at how fast it's typing everything for me. I don't need to do that. It's galloping down the screen. And because I'm at row 591, notice what happened over here. I now have this little elevator that I can bring up. I can travel up that way, or I'm going to just click over here. Notice when I click that highlight's going to go away. I can use the arrow key to go up. I can use the page up key to jump up a page at a time. If I hold the page up key, it just goes up. Whoop. There we go. Get on up. I was holding the page down key. There we go. Now we're at the top. So I want to show you some formatting options here. When I have a list, I like to have the top look like a heading for me and look different than the rest of the data. So I'm going to bring up some formatting. And let's say we would like this to be, we'll keep the font the same, but we'd like it to be larger because we want it to stand out. And here it is, it's spilling over into other cells. Let's wrap the text. Let's see what it does. And because this is kind of narrow, look at business is jumping to the next line. Let's adjust that so it breaks the words in the right place. And let's do the same thing over here. And I want it to stand out, so I'm going to put a border around it, and I want to shade it. I find some of the lighter shading is easier on my eyes if I'm going to look at it a lot. And I may have information from another report that I could go over to and copy and paste it in here rather than retype everything. So now I created a heading that looks good. I can easily highlight what I want to change, and I can change it all at the same time. Let's make that font a little smaller. There can be a time that you formatted something and you loved the format and you're like, oh my goodness, that took 4 or 5 steps to do. How can I do that in a quicker way? I'm going to go over to another sheet that we were on. Let me go over to sheet 1. Oh, that doesn't have it. Let's try sheet 2. Here we go. Remember, Jim, we did a couple different things to this one. We made it underlined, we made it italics, we made it bold, and you can see those things are showing up as grayed out up here. If I wanted to take the way I formatted that cell and format it somewhere else, that's where one of my favorite features is. It's called Format Painter. What this does is it picks up all the formatting from that particular cell. And when I go over another cell I want, see it has a little paintbrush? When I go over another cell I want and click it, it's going to drop the exact same formatting. Saved me a lot of time. So that is a feature that I use often. Now these sheets, there's multiple sheets in a workbook. There doesn't have to be. When it starts out, there's just one. But I find these sheets really helpful, and I want to give them a name so I can tell which is which. Now this one, let's call this one customer information. When I go down here and double click on the sheet name, I can type there. And then I click away anywhere on that tab, and that's saved. I can also go in here and right click and look at my other options. I can delete the tab, I can rename it, I can move it, I can do a tab color. It's not as obvious when you're on the tab, but when you're off that tab, the tab color really stands out. And we can also reorder these. When I just clicked on it, it showed move or copy. What we can do is, I'm sorry, I'll go into move and copy in a second. The moving I was thinking of is moving the order. Imagine you've created a number of different sheets and you're thinking, gosh, I really want this one to come after this one. I'm holding down the left mouse button first. I put my mouse over the sheet that says sheet 2. I hold down the left mouse button. That little black triangle shows up. And as I move my finger across the pad for the mouse, it's going to move that triangle, and wherever the triangle is when I let go is where it's going to move that sheet. Now imagine we've created this information and we say, gosh, this is great for my September sales. I want to have the exact same thing for October, but I don't want to recreate all of this. You don't have to. Take your mouse over that tab and right click it and see move or copy. We're going to choose move or copy. And here, it's going to move it in the order, or this is when it creates a copy. I click on the checkbox for create a copy and OK. And now I have a new one. It put a 2 after it. The reason for that is you can't have 2 tabs with the same name. So I'm going to double click on this one and I'm going to rename, oops, let's see. Didn't like what I did. Escape, there we go. Escape gets us out of everything. I wish we had escape more in life. That would be so cool. Whenever I do anything wrong in Excel, escape takes you back. So here I'm going to rename this, rename, and I'm just going to, come on, get in here. You can also double click it to rename it. And we'll call this one October. You do hit a limit of characters you can have there, so it can be nice to reduce, to not get too long in your names. So we'll change this to October. There we go. And now I want the September one before the October one. You get the idea. I now can have them in different colors. So I want to go back to sheet 1. In here, I want to show you that colors are really helpful when it comes to sharing information. Sometimes you want things to stand out. We can have the font color. Before we talked about the fill color, but we can also have the font color. And we can set up currencies where when things are negative, you get to choose how that shows up. Let me go in here. Let's say, what if it's negative $15? You can show it as a negative. You can also go into Excel and have numbers show up that are red that are negative. Where you have to be real careful is when you print things out. I personally like to have the negative symbol show up because it doesn't matter in the printout. It's always going to be clear to me. If I have some things in red and I have a color sheet and I print it out in black and white, I'm not going to realize that that number is negative. And you know, here the negative's taken into account when we do that formula. But when you're looking at a big sheet with a lot of numbers, sometimes you're going to have brackets around them. Can be a great way to show a negative. But just be real careful when you're using colors as showing up as a negative when you have printouts. I am going to pause for a moment. We have a little bit of time left, and I would love to spend some time on something that someone has for a question. So, David, is there any particular area or any particular question that anyone has where I can spend a little focused time on that area for them?
There's nothing in the chat. Not at the moment. We have, here we go. Can you recommend good resources? Book, Udemy, whatever that, I don't know what that is. YouTube to learn more Excel on your own?
Sure. That is a tip I love to share with people after I teach them Excel. I love that you showed up for this class because getting a strong foundation in Excel is really helpful. And often it's easier to learn Excel by looking at someone else's spreadsheets. I'm going to show you something. Watch over here. And I just did new. Let me jump back again. I went to File. When I hit the File menu, it gives me different options. And look at what's across the top. Blank workbook. That's what I showed you when we started. Here's a whole bunch of my workbooks down here. Business expense report. When you open something like that, when you open another template and look at something that already exists, it's really going to help you understand more about Excel. So let me get to your question now. I highly recommend when you're in Excel and you're struggling with something to go to good old YouTube University. That's where I go when there's some particular feature in Excel that I haven't used for a long time and I'm a little rusty. There might be a particular formula you want to do. And you can go there and they will give you 2 and 3 minute videos specifically on what you want to learn. Now, one thing I do want to cover, because a lot of you are business owners and I want to make sure you understand formulas, is I want to spend another minute there. Let me take this number back to a positive number. And I want to talk a little bit more about the formula. The way we created this formula was we clicked on this auto sum button. And notice here what this is telling me. The formula is up here in the formula bar. And what that formula is equal, it's an equal sign, and then the word sum, S-U-M, then within brackets, E6 colon E9. That's called a range. So this is the range E6 to E9. Now here's another way I could do a formula. I can do a formula of things that are not attached to each other. And I don't have to use the formula specifically. Watch this. I can put an equal sign, and then I can click on the first one I want to add, and watch as the formula creates itself in the formula bar. I'm going to hit the plus sign, and then I'm going to hit my next number, and I'm going to hit the plus sign. I hit my next number, and now I hit enter. There's my formula. Now, I could have hit the auto sum and done it that way, but imagine if there was a whole bunch of information between those rows of 6, 8, and 10, where it didn't make sense for me to capture all of that. So formulas, when you're a business owner, formulas are so important. When it comes to other Excel training, there's a lot of Excel training available. My suggestion to you is start out with what some of the free information is, and there is a lot out on YouTube. And I know there are trainings that you can go to that are 3 and 4 hours long. If you are going to be using Excel a lot, I would say do it. As an Excel user, I've used Excel for over 25 years. And I still go to Excel training sessions. I know I'm going to spend 4 hours at that Excel training session, but in that 4 hours, if I can come away with 2 or 3 techniques or tips or tools that are new to me that I wasn't using before, I will make up a lot more time in my effectiveness than the time I spent in that 4-hour class. So I do encourage you to attend trainings, but keep in mind, if you're financially strapped right now, take advantage of the free training that's out there for you, like this free training session. And this training session that I'm doing today is very basic Excel. I wanted you to have the basics down because next month, I'm teaching you how to use a cash flow spreadsheet. Joe Radola with us has this cash flow spreadsheet that he shares, and he shared it with me back when I started my business. And he and I are going to get together and teach you how to use that spreadsheet. And I wanted to make sure that we had a good foundation of how to use Excel before we go into that class. So that's the reason that we're starting at such a basic level for you today. Other questions, David?
There are no other questions at the moment, but I did put in a link in the chat for a survey that we would love if you would fill out. It's a survey that basically asks what you thought of the class, where we can improve, what we did well, and it's the way we get better at this. And it also helps convince the SBA that we're actually doing work that's worthwhile. So if you wouldn't mind filling that out, I appreciate it. You are going to be getting, by the way, as long as I have your attention, you'll be getting an email with another link to the evaluation, and it will have a link to a recording of this session so you can watch it. That recording will be available for another week, and you can watch it and review some of the things Linda said. We have a comment from Divya that says, I would love to join the Cash Flow Excel class. That's great. We'll be announcing that. Watch our calendar. And if you're not on our newsletter email thing, please sign up for it. You can do that on our website, sbdcsc.org. Let's see, we've just got some nice compliments for you, Linda.
I could not let you go without teaching you how to print, because
Oh,
so often this is great to look at on our screen, but how do we print it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up at this particular tab. Actually, let me choose a different tab because this one will look better. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one to show you. I'm going to hit File and then Print. And watch this. See how I have my headings across the top? That looks great. But when I scroll down, I lost my headings. And you're gonna look at it and say, okay, now what was that heading again? So I'm gonna go back to my screen. And now I have a little dashed line right here. That dashed line is showing me where the page is breaking. I can go into page layout. I need to tell it more about how I want to lay out the page. These are the frequently used buttons, but if you look at the bottom right corner, it's going to take me into more detail. This is my page setup. So what I want to tell it I want to do is I'm going to print in the portrait. That's right. I'm going to keep it the size that it is. I'm going to go to the margins. Yes, I'm okay with those margins. Header, footer. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but I do suggest to people, actually, oh, we're going there. Custom footer. I suggest to people in your custom footer, put the file name, and that's this image right here, insert file name. The reason for that is you make a printout, 4 months later you see the printout, and you say, what did I call that file again? So I strongly encourage that you put the file name on the bottom of your sheet. And now across these tabs, the sheet, look at this one. I love this. Print titles, rows to repeat at the top. I click here, and then I tell it I want row 5 to repeat at the top of each page, and then okay. Now, let's go to print again. Look at that. There's my file name on the bottom. There's my heading, and now as I scroll down, I get that heading on the top of each page. And we would choose a printer at this point and print. So that is your introduction to Excel class. Let me stop sharing my screen and get my camera back on. There we go, I am back. So I would love to find out from you, what are features that you would like us to include? So when you fill out that survey that David gave you, we ask in that survey for you to tell us what things you'd like for us to do for you going forward. If you tell us what sort of Excel features you would like to have talked about, I'm going to check and see if those are appropriate topics for our cash flow presentation, and I would love to address your questions there. Or if you want to put them in the chat, I can take note of them before we wrap up and make sure those are things that we look at for you for future videos if it isn't appropriate for that cash flow video.
That's great.
David.
And I put a link to the cash flow registration class in the chat, and a link to the evaluation form. So we'll leave it on, and please take advantage of that. And like I said, you'll be getting a link to this video as well.
Great. And I am an advisor with the SBDC. If you have Excel spreadsheets and you're working as one of the clients through our Shasta-Cascade SBDC and you would like some advising on working with those, you can work with Emily and set up time to meet with me. I'd be glad to help you.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.